Hi, my name is Bethany with Craft with Bethany, and I've partnered with Copper Creek Patterns to bring you this tutorial for the Forget-Me-Not Tee pattern. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to sew up this pattern from start to finish. If you're not familiar with this pattern, it is a t-shirt that has a either crop length or longer length, and it ties in the front, hence the name Forget-Me-Not. If you don't have the pattern yet, be sure to click the link in the description below to get the pattern, and then we can sew this up together. One thing that I love about Copper Creek Patterns is all of their patterns include a PDF pattern and a projector file so that you can choose to cut this out however you wish. I chose to use my projector today to prepare my pieces for this tutorial, but you can also print off a PDF, tape the pieces together, cut out the pieces, and then cut out your fabric. Either way you choose to cut out your fabric, it's very easy and user-friendly, and the instructions walk you through exactly how to do that. One thing that I really love about sewing my own clothes is how I can get a perfect fit every time. Copper Creek Patterns instructions really walks you through the steps to adjust the pattern to fit your body type. Whether you need a full bust adjustment or a height adjustment, all of those instructions are in the download so that you can walk through those and prepare your pieces for that perfect fit for your exact body. For example, I am taller than the standard height for the way that these patterns are drafted, which in the instructions it says the patterns are drafted for someone that's 5'5". I'm a little taller than 5'5", and I have a long torso, so I wanted to make sure that I added a little length so that my crop wasn't super crop on me. That's just my personal preference, so I did add a little length to my bodice pieces on the front and the back so that they matched up before I cut out my pieces. All right, so now that I have my pattern pieces cut out, let's talk about what you need to get started. You're going to need a sewing machine, and if you would like to use a serger, you can use that as well, but you are going to need a sewing machine for a couple of steps. This is not a project that you can do solely on the serger. So we are going to use both a sewing machine and a serger in this tutorial. Now my serger is also a cover stitch machine because it is a 5-thread serger, so I will be hemming with a cover stitch machine so you can see what that looks like, but if you do not have a cover stitch machine, you can still hem your garment with a sewing machine. You're also going to need some clips. I highly recommend using clips instead of pins, especially with stretchy knit fabric. It's going to prevent snags and also hold your fabric as it does stretches, hold it a little tighter as you start to sew. Now let's talk about the pieces you need to construct this garment. Okay, so for the pattern pieces that you're going to need 2 sleeves cut mirrored. I did mark where the back is and I did snip at the center. You're going to need 2 front bodice pieces that have the tie, and these are cut mirrored as well because we're going to have a seam that goes down the front. So I have 2 pieces here. You're going to need 2 facings that match the tie, and then you're also going to need 1 back piece. This back piece is actually cut on the fold, so it's just one big piece. And then you're going to need to cut a neckband. In the instructions, it tells you what size neckband to cut based on the size that you're cutting out. So you can follow those instructions to cut out your neckband. So now that I have all of my pieces, let's start sewing this up. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is lay out our 2 front bodice pieces, and I've got them laying right side up. I can tell they're right side up because of the texture on my fabric, but that may not come across on camera, but I've got them right side up. And then I'm going to take my facing pieces, and I'm going to place those right sides together and align them with the tie area on the front bodice. Now, in the instructions, they refer to this shape as a boot shape, and it really does kind of have a shape of a boot and a heel. So here's the heel, and here's our boot pointing down. So once you have your pieces laid on top, right sides together, this is where you're going to take your clips and secure your fabric together so that it does not shift or stretch on you too much. So now that I have my pieces clipped together, I'm going to go to my sewing machine, not my serger. I'm going to use my sewing machine for this step, And I'm going to sew all the way around, pivot at this point, and all the way back to here. So you can start at either place. I'm going to start at the heel and go all the way down and all the way back up, and same for this one as well. When we're done, we're going to create some little notches and trim off this little point and turn it right side out. I've sewn around both, and I did some next steps and already turned this one right side out and pressed it. So this is what it will look like when you're done. But to finish this, before we turn it right side out, we want to snip off the little pointy end here, but you want to make sure you're not snipping your threads. And then we're going to trim down this seam allowance to 1/4 inch. Once you have your seam allowance trimmed down, if you are using a thicker fabric, you might need to go in and make some snips around these curves for it to lay nice and flat. My fabric is on the thinner side, so I don't really need to do that. So I'm just going to reach in and pull out my little tie here. I'm going to use a little corner tool to run that along my seam. Alright, so I have turned this right side out, and you can see a difference from the pressed one to the not pressed one. So what I'm going to do is go press this. Now, in the instructions, it gives you the option to top stitch along here if you want. If I had a thicker fabric, I probably would. But with this thinner fabric, I'm not really going to worry about it because it actually looks really nice just like it is. So I'm going to give this a press, and then we'll go on to our next step. Alright, next we're going to place our bodice pieces right sides together. And we are going to clip and sew right down this front to join the two bodice pieces together. So you will have a seam down the front of your shirt here. Now we're going to sew all the way to where our ties begin. So I'm going to clip that right here. And it says that you can use a serger for this, which I plan to do. You'll have to just stop and tack your serger tails back into your seam allowance at the bottom so that they don't show on the front of your shirt. You can absolutely use a sewing machine for this step as well. Just be sure you're using a stretch stitch like a zigzag stitch or a lightning bolt stitch to make sure that you still have stretch in this. Okay, so now that we've got it sewn together down the center, the next thing you're going to do, which I've already done, is do some basting stitches that go from the center point at the V-neck out about 1.5 inches to 2 inches. And this is just sewing a straight stitch from here to here and here to here to help keep that V-neck shape, because we are working with a stretchy fabric, and as we build and construct this can get stretched out, and then your neck is stretched out and you don't have a nice V shape. So these are just temporary basting stitches to prevent the stretch along here. Once you've done that, we're going to join the back bodice to the front bodice at the shoulder seams. So I'm going to lay these right sides together. And we're going to sew across here and across here. Now the instructions tell you to go ahead and sew up the side seams as well, because it has you putting the sleeves in the round. But I actually like to put the sleeves in not in the round, so you can either follow the instructions that come with the pattern to do the sleeves in the round, or you can follow this tutorial to learn another way to put in the sleeves. Either way, you're both going to get the same result with finished sleeves. So you choose which method works best for you and that you're most comfortable with. Okay, so now that I've got my shoulder sleeves done, you can, like I said, go ahead and do the sides and follow the instructions to do the sleeves in the round. But I'm going to show you another method where you open this up and place it right sides up on your table. And then we have our two sleeve pieces. So when I cut out my sleeves, I did mark which side was the back side, and obviously I know this is the back because this is the back piece of the shirt. the back bodice. So I'm going to take one of my sleeves, and I also snipped a little snip in here right where the center mark was for the shoulder seam. So I'm going to take this piece and place it right sides down, and I know it goes to this side because this is the back marking, this is the back piece, and I'm going to line up that center notch with my shoulder seam and give it a little clip right there. Then I'm going to take this point of my shoulder, or my sleeve, and this point of my arm side and clip those together. And I'm going to do the same on this side. And then I'm going to kind of just pick up my fabric and shake it a little bit. And I'm just going to follow the fabric and clip as I go, joining them together. And they should ease right in together perfectly. So now that I have my sleeve attached, I can go to my serger or my sewing machine and go all the way along this curve from this point to this point, and it'll attach my sleeve and look just like that. But before I take it to the serger, I'm going to go ahead and clip on my other one and sew both of them while I'm already over there. Okay, so we have our two sleeves attached, and now we can sew the side seams and the underside of the arm all in one swift motion. So it's much, much easier. At least I think it is. Some people like the other way, and that's great, and there are good times to use it, but I prefer this method, especially with stretchy knits. So I'm just going to clip down the side seam, and I don't know if you noticed, but I started where the underarm is, those seams, to line them up. All right, and then I'm going to do the arm as well. There we go. So we're going to sew all the way down to connect our side seam and close our sleeve. We're going to do that for both sides. Okay, so we are almost done. Now I'm going to do the neckband next and hem last, since I'm going to use my cover stitch to hem. I just want to switch my serger over to cover stitch once. So we're going to do that last, but I am going to turn my garment right side out. It's looking so cute. So when we go to hem, we'll hem the sleeves and along this back bottom area here, because we have the little tie in the front. What we're going to do next is the neckband. So you should have cut out a piece based on your size and the cut chart in the instructions. You want to fold it in half, right sides together, lining up the short ends, just like this. And then we're going to measure in 1 inch. And I like to use a fabric pen or marker to measure in 1 inch from this edge, somewhere near the center there. And I'm going to draw a line from this corner to that point that I made. And it doesn't have to be perfect. But I made a V shape, just like that. So I measured in 1 inch to here, and then I drew a line to the corners. We're going to sew a straight stitch up to this point and back down to create the V in our V-neck neckband. So we're going to go to the sewing machine, sew this up from here to here to here. You're going to pivot at this point, and then we're going to come back here. Okay, so I sewed my V, and I'm going to take my fabric scissors and trim off this little extra bit to create that V shape. Just want to make sure we're not cutting into the stitches that we just sewed. And we want to leave about 1/4 inch seam allowance around that V. Once we're done with that, we're going to flip it around so it's right sides out, wrong sides together. And now we've got our V-shaped neckband. See how it's made that nice V that we want? That's going to align with this. So what we're going to do next is fold this really well and press it to give it a nice memory crease along this edge before we do anything else. So pressing is really important for this step. Okay, so this is what your neckband should look like after it's pressed. And then if you can tell, I did go to my sewing machine and I did a basting stitch along here and then back up about 2 to 3 inches from the center point. So you want to go down, pivot, and go back up. This is going to secure and help hold that V shape. We want to do everything we can to keep that V shape in our stretchy fabric. All right, so we're going to take our neckband and put it right sides together, matching up this point with this point. And I did a little snip here so that it will pivot well. And we're going to align one side. I'm going to clip it really well, because what we're going to do is sew down to the point and then pivot and sew up this side 2 or 3 inches. We're just going to do a couple of inches, and the whole point here is to not stretch our neckband as we are sewing this. We want our V-neck to lay nice and flat and not have any puckers or stretching through this section right here. So it's going to look a little funny right now, but we're going to sew to the point and then back out. We're going to do this on our sewing machine. So now we can fold this up and just do a quick peek and make sure everything is looking really good. If you have any threads popping through your little basting stitches, you can pull those out or use some scissors to snip those out just very carefully. All right, so now what we're going to do is find the center back of our neckband. So we kind of pinch it at the point, the V-neck, now that it's secure. And we're going to find that center back. I like to mark it with a clip on the raw edge. We're going to find the center back of our back bodice. So we're going to line up our shoulders, our shoulder seams, and pinch and find that center back. You can use a little snip for this one if you want. We're going to take our neckband and just flip it over. So we still want the raw edge going along that neck opening on our bodice pieces. We're going to line up that clip with that notch and mark our center. The next thing we're going to do is kind of line up from where we sewed towards the V-neck and that clip and kind of stretch until it aligns and clip along that edge. This is how we ease the neckband into the neck opening of the bodice pieces. I try to do as little stretching across the front of the neckband, and if I need to stretch it in and adjust it, I try to work that mostly into the back where it's not going to be as visible. Again, I don't want anything kind of pulling on the chest of the shirt or making the V-neck not look like it has a V-neck. Alright, so from here I can go to my serger and attach the rest of the neckband. And when I do that, I'll make sure to kind of clean up these edges here with my serger. If you don't want to use a serger, you can continue on using a zigzag or lightning bolt stitch on your sewing machine and follow that to keep the stretch of your knit fabric. Okay, so the last thing that we're going to do is hem. And just so you know, I did go to my iron and pressed my seam allowance for my neckband down towards the shirt, so it is laying nice and flat. So you have an option here to top stitch around this to make it lay nice and flat. I'm going to try mine on and see how it looks without top stitching. I don't really want to add top stitching there if I don't have to, just personal preference, but I can, or I can use my cover stitch to go around it. But what I am going to do is hem around my sleeves. So I went ahead while I was at the iron and folded up my hem allowance 1 inch on both sleeves. And then I also did it around the bottom of the shirt. And so what it has you doing is hemming all the way around. And then when you get to the front, you're going to follow the curve of the facing, which I can feel is right here, and it's going to curve all the way around here. So you're going to follow that curve to tack down this facing, okay? So you can, if you have the same thread in your top and bobbin thread, if you have the same thread in the bobbin as the top, you could do it from this underside so you can see where you're going. But if you don't, you would need to do it from the top, or if you're using a cover stitch, you would do it from the top, and you would just kind of have to use your fingers. You can easily feel where that is, and then it curves all the way back around here. So you're going to go all the way around the bottom and then curve all the way across here. So when I'm done with that, we'll take a look at it finished, and then we'll try it on. All right, so I have hemmed my sleeves and the bottom and all the way around, and it looks great. So now the fun part of trying it on. I'm gonna go put this on and then show you what it looks like when we're all done. All right, so here is my Forget Me Not top by Copper Creek Patterns, all done. Turned out so cute. I love it so much. I'll do a little spin. I love it when I make something and I put it on and I just feel really good in it. That's the joy of sewing your own clothes, is just the confidence it gives you when you put it on and you know it's going to fit you. All right, so this top turned out super cute. I hope yours did as well. I'm sure it did. If you're not aware, there are a lot of different options for this pattern. Like I said before, there's a short sleeve option and an elbow length option, which is what I chose to go with for today. Now there is a modest V-neck and then there's a deep V-neck. I went with the more modest V-neck so I could wear it to work. Now there is a crop version, which is what I chose to do, but remember I did add some length because I am taller than the pattern is drafted for. But then there is also a longer version that comes down much longer, and you can adjust that anywhere you need to. Just follow the instructions for your height adjustment. If you have any questions about making this pattern, be sure to leave a question in the comments below and we'll be happy to help you out. And if you really enjoyed this tutorial, be sure you subscribe to Copper Creek Patterns YouTube and Instagram and Facebook. But also be sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel and my Instagram as well, Craft with Bethany. I've linked them below. I love doing sewing tutorials of all types, including garments. And if you need anything, I'm here to support your sewing journey. Until next time, happy sewing.